Our daughter Natalie needs our prayers as she struggles with her failing business. Mom's voice carried through St. Catherine's during the prayer requests. 300 parishioners turning to look at me with sympathetic faces, as if I'd just been diagnosed with something terminal. I was sitting in the third pew, hands folded in my lap, when I realized this wasn't a prayer request. It was a public declaration of my supposed failure, delivered from the pulpit during Sunday Mass like a community service announcement. My mother stood at the microphone near the altar, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, performing grief for a tragedy that didn't exist. The failing business she was praying about had just closed a $12 million funding round and had been featured in Incorporated magazine's fastest-growing startups. Did my family really think I was on the verge of bankruptcy, or had they simply never bothered to ask how my software company was actually doing? Many of you know Natalie started a little tech company 3 years ago, Mom continued, her voice wavering with practiced emotion. She's been working so hard, but these startup things rarely succeed. We're asking for prayers that she finds the strength to close this chapter and find stable employment. Perhaps someone in our parish knows of job opportunities. Job opportunities. I was the CEO of a company with 47 employees and $8.3 million in annual recurring revenue. Behind me, I heard Aunt Patricia whisper to someone, "Poor thing, such wasted potential." She should have listened when we told her to get a teaching certificate. Father Matthews, leading the Mass, nodded sympathetically at Mom. Let us keep Natalie in our prayers. Sometimes our children need to learn hard lessons about practical careers. I checked my watch. 10:47 a.m. Bishop Thompson was scheduled to make his announcement during the second collection, right after communion. The announcement about the new children's wing donation. The $500,000 donation that was going to make this entire prayer request age very poorly, very quickly. Mom returned to our pew, squeezing my hand with tears in her eyes. It's okay, sweetheart. Failure is part of growth. You'll find your path. My father, sitting beside her, patted my shoulder. Your mother and I have been discussing it. After you close the business, you can move back home while you look for work. No shame in regrouping. Move back home. I lived in a 3,000 square foot house in Boulder that I'd purchased last year for $1.2 million in cash. The family has been collecting donations. Aunt Patricia leaned forward to whisper. We have about $3,400 to help you through this difficult transition. We know startups drain savings. They'd started a Help Natalie fund. $3,400 to rescue me from a business that had $4.7 million in the bank. That's very kind, I managed to say. Mass continued. Readings. Homily. Father Matthews talked about perseverance through hardship, glancing meaningfully in my direction twice. Parishioners kept turning to look at me with pity. Mrs. Morrison from the choir mouthed, "I'm praying for you." Then came communion. I stayed in my seat, not because of faith issues, but because I didn't want to walk past 300 people who now thought I was a charity case. After communion, Bishop Thompson approached the pulpit. He was visiting from the diocese for the capital campaign announcement. He'd been working with the parish on the new children's wing expansion for 18 months. Good morning, St. Catherine's family, he said warmly. I'm delighted to be here today for a very special announcement. As many of you know, our parish has been raising funds for a new children's religious education wing. We set an ambitious goal of $1.5 million. The congregation murmured. It was ambitious. St. Catherine's was a mid-sized parish in a working-class neighborhood. Most fundraising happened through bake sales and raffles. I'm thrilled to announce that we've reached our goal, Bishop Thompson continued. In fact, we've exceeded it. Thanks to the generosity of this community and one extraordinary individual, we've raised $1.8 million. Construction will begin this spring. Applause filled the church. Mom was clapping enthusiastically, probably relieved the attention was off my failure. Now, I want to recognize someone special, Bishop Thompson said. Most of you know that major capital campaigns require anchor donations, large commitments that inspire others to give. Our campaign received such a donation. A single contribution of $500,000 that made this entire project possible. The church went completely silent. $500,000 was more money than most of these families saw in years. This donor wished to remain anonymous initially, Bishop Thompson continued, but has now agreed to be recognized because they believe in transparency and inspiring others to support their communities. He looked directly at me. My stomach dropped. This donor is someone you all know. Someone who grew up in this parish, attended our school, was confirmed here. Someone who has built remarkable success and chosen to give back to the community that shaped her. Mom's hand tightened on my arm. Dad had gone very still. Please join me in thanking Natalie Morgan for her extraordinary $500,000 donation to our Children's Wing campaign. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the church erupted. 300 people turned to stare at me, not with pity now, but with shock. Mom's face had gone white. Dad looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Aunt Patricia's mouth was literally hanging open. Bishop Thompson was smiling, gesturing for me to stand. I stood on shaking legs. The applause was deafening. "Natalie," Bishop Thompson called, "would you like to say a few words?" I walked to the pulpit, past rows of stunned parishioners, past my family who looked like they'd just witnessed a magic trick they couldn't explain. Bishop Thompson handed me the microphone and stepped aside. "Thank you, Bishop Thompson," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm honored to support St. Catherine's. This parish gave me so much growing up: community, values, education. When I learned about the Children's Wing project, I knew I wanted to contribute significantly." I paused, looking at my mother in the third pew. "Some of you may have heard that my business is struggling, that I'm failing, that I need prayers and job opportunities and a collection fund to help me through a difficult transition. Uncomfortable shifting throughout the church. I appreciate the concern, but I need to clarify something. My company, CloudSync Solutions, isn't failing. We're actually doing quite well." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the church's presentation system. They'd installed it last year for modern services. My company website appeared on the 2 large screens flanking the altar. CloudSync Solutions. Enterprise Cloud Infrastructure Management. Founded, 2021. 47 employees, $8.3 million annual revenue. Clients, 127 enterprise companies. CloudSync provides cloud infrastructure management for enterprise clients. We help large companies optimize their cloud computing systems, reduce costs, improve security. We have 127 corporate clients, including 3 Fortune 500 companies. The church was silent except for someone's baby crying softly in the back. 3 years ago, I founded this company with $50,000 of my own money that I'd saved working as a software engineer. First year, we did $400,000 in revenue. Second year, $2.1 million. This year, we'll close at about $8.3 million. I pulled up our recent funding announcement. CloudSync Solutions closes $12 million Series A, led by Benchmark Capital, company valued at $45 million. Last month, we closed a $12 million series of funding round led by Benchmark Capital. Our company is currently valued at $45 million. I personally own 62% of the equity, which means my stake is worth approximately $28 million on paper. Mom had her hand over her mouth. Dad looked like he might faint. Aunt Patricia was frantically scrolling on her phone, probably looking up my company. "I'm not struggling," I said clearly. "I'm not failing. I'm not in need of prayer for strength to close this chapter and find stable employment. I'm the CEO of a rapidly growing technology company that's revolutionizing how enterprises manage cloud infrastructure." I switched to another slide, a photo of our office. This is our Boulder office. 12,000 square feet. 47 employees, 27 of whom are engineers. We're hiring 15 more people this quarter. Starting salaries for our junior engineers are $95,000. Senior engineers make $180,000. I pay myself a modest salary of $200,000, but my equity stake is worth tens of millions. Father Matthews was staring at the screens like they were showing something miraculous. I donated $500,000 to this campaign because I can afford to, because this parish shaped who I am, because I believe in giving back. But I also think it's important for everyone here to understand something about assumptions. I looked directly at my mother. My family assumed I was failing because they didn't understand my business. Tech startups don't look like traditional success. We work long hours in casual clothes. We focus on growth over immediate profit. We raise venture capital instead of bootstrapping. None of that makes sense to people used to traditional careers with paychecks and benefits and 401ks. But assumptions without information are just prejudices. My mother stood up here and prayed for my failing business without ever asking me how the business was actually doing. She could have called me. She could have visited my office. She could have looked at our website or read the Incorporated magazine profile about us from last month. I pulled up the Incorporated magazine article. CloudSync Solutions. How one woman built an $8 million company in 3 years. Instead, she assumed. She saw that I was working hard and concluded I must be failing. She saw that I lived modestly. I drive a Honda, I don't wear expensive jewelry, I still shop at Target, and concluded I must be struggling. She never considered that maybe I was being financially responsible while building equity worth millions. The church was so quiet, I could hear the heating system humming. So yes, please pray for me, I said. Pray that I make good decisions for my company. Pray that we continue to serve our clients well. Pray that I use my success responsibly and generously. But don't pray for me to fail less or find stable employment. Pray for me to build more, create more jobs, make more impact. I handed the microphone back to Bishop Thompson, who looked both delighted and uncomfortable. Thank you, Natalie, he said carefully, for your generosity and your honesty. I think we all have some reflecting to do about assumptions and support. I returned to my pew. Mom wouldn't look at me. Dad was staring straight ahead. Aunt Patricia had tears streaming down her face, though I couldn't tell if they were from shame or shock. Mass concluded quickly after that. Father Matthews seemed eager to get to the final blessing and dismiss everyone. In the parking lot afterward, people approached cautiously. Natalie, I had no idea, Mrs. Morrison said. Your mother said you were struggling. My mother was mistaken. The $500,000 donation is extraordinary. St. Catherine's deserves it. This parish gave me my foundation. I'm returning the investment. Mom and Dad approached slowly, looking like they'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Natalie, Mom said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You thought I was failing. I know. You said it publicly. To 300 people. We were worried. You work such long hours. You don't talk about work much. We assumed. You assumed wrong. And instead of asking me privately, you announced my supposed failure from the pulpit and asked the parish to pray for me to give up and get a real job. Dad found his voice. We started a collection for you. $3,400. To help you transition. I know. Aunt Patricia told me. $3,400. That's very generous. Please donate it to the Children's Wing Fund in my name. They can use it. Your company is really worth $45 million? Mom asked weakly. According to the investors who just gave us $12 million, yes. And your share is worth $28 million? On paper. I can't access that money until there's a liquidity event. Either we go public or get acquired. But yes, that's my equity value. Aunt Patricia approached, crying openly now. Natalie, I'm so sorry. We were all so sure you were struggling. You never said anything about success. I did say things. I said we closed a major client. I said we hired more engineers. I said we moved to a bigger office. You heard still playing with that computer thing. You didn't listen because you'd already decided I was failing. The Help Natalie Fund, she said. We collected money from the whole family. I know. It's kind. Donate it to the parish. Consider it from the family. They stood in the parking lot, unsure what to say, how to apologize for the public spectacle of praying for my failure. What happens now? Mom finally asked. Now you decide whether you want to actually know about my life and work, or whether you want to continue making assumptions. Your choice. I drove home to my house in Boulder, the house my parents thought I was renting, but that I'd actually purchased with cash. My phone was exploding with messages from extended family, parish members, people I hadn't heard from in years suddenly interested in my success. I ignored most of them, but I did respond to one from Bishop Thompson. Thank you for handling that with grace. Your donation will change countless children's lives. And perhaps it changed some adults' perspectives too. 3 weeks later, Mom called. Can I visit your office? Really visit? I want to understand what you built. Sure. Tuesday at 2 p.m. She arrived exactly on time, parking in visitor parking, checking in at our modern reception area, eyes wide at the open floor plan filled with engineers at standing desks, the conference rooms with glass walls, the kitchen with free snacks and espresso machines. I gave her the full tour, showed her our server room, our development process, our client dashboard, introduced her to my employees, explained what each team did. This is incredible, she said quietly in my office afterward. You build all this? With a great team, yes. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. That I assumed you were failing. that I prayed for your failure in front of everyone. You didn't pray for my failure. You prayed for me to give up and get a stable job, which, to be fair, probably felt like the same thing to you. I was so wrong. You were. But you're here now. You're learning. That's what matters. She stayed for 3 hours, meeting people, asking questions, finally understanding what I'd been building for 3 years while she'd been planning my intervention. They'd prayed for my struggling business during Sunday Mass. The bishop announced my $500,000 donation moments later. 300 people learned the difference between assumption and reality. And my mother learned that sometimes the child who looks like they're failing is actually the one changing the world. One cloud infrastructure solution at a time, to the tune of $8.3 million in annual revenue, and a company valued at $45 million. But who's counting?